dream. My poor little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
Welcome back to Takeout. That was Martin Luther King Jr. on August 28th, 1963, reciting his famous I Have a Dream speech. Today, we're Martin Luther King Jr., a national holiday recognizing the civil rights activist's life and his profound legacy for this country and the world. King was assassinated at just 39 years old in 1968. This past Thursday would have been his 97th birthday. I'm joined now by Dr. King's son, Martin Luther King III, and his wife, Arndrea Waters King. Together, they run the Drum Major Institute, which was founded by Dr. King in 1961 to combat racism, poverty, and violence. I'm honored to have both of you with me this afternoon. Martin, as you well know, Martin Luther King Jr. was a great orator. He also said to protest, you have to have a purpose, and there has to be a strategy behind that which you are trying to achieve with your protesting. And civil disobedience, nonviolent civil disobedience was at the core of that work. What do you think the lessons of that would be for those who are protesting Trump administration policies today be?
Well, I think that, first of all, thank you for the opportunity. But I think that the lesson is that because of the method and the manner that protests took place, ultimately there were victories. I wish there was a magic wand that could be waved and conduct would occur differently. And what I mean by that is I think people are rejecting the aggressive policies. People may or may not reject the fact that, yes, some immigrants must be picked up, but it's the approach oftentimes that is creating the problem. And the fact that you're going into schools, dividing families, you're going into houses of worship, you're going just through the community. And that obviously creates a lot of discomfort, particularly for anybody who happens to be a citizen. So, but the learning process should be that if this is done in a nonviolent way, it can have results. I think my dad, his team, my mom approved that. And I think I don't know what ultimately is going to be the change, but we keep seeing more and more people joining in to say, listen, it's not that you are enacting a policy, it's how you're choosing, I think, is what the problem is.
Arndrea, your thoughts?
As I was listening to Martin, one of the things I also reflected on is his father's saying that the greatness of America is the right to protest for that which is right. I think that is, we're coming up this year on 250-year anniversary of the founding of the United States. And when you really think about even from the Tea Party, like the Boston Tea Party, excuse me. And, that has always been the greatness of this country. Whether certainly we're looking and thinking about the civil rights movement today, but if you think about the women's suffrage movement, the equality, ERA movement, there have been so many movements in this country. That is how we are. That's how the marginalized or those that feel that they're voiceless makes their voices heard and known. And as long as it remains nonviolent, we certainly are in the spirit not only of Martin Luther King Jr., but in some ways even the founding fathers of this country.
Martin, there was an executive order President Trump signed early in his second term about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it has had many ramifications throughout the federal government. One of them is to remove lots of references to either your father, the desegregation movement, segregation, Jim Crow, and some of the violence that attended all of that struggle. Is part of your father's legacy being erased?
Well, I think it really is American history that's being erased, not just Martin Luther King Jr., because he was one person who did lead a part of the leadership of the modern civil rights movement. But the fact that you're disacknowledging the history, if you do not know the history, then it probably is going to be a strange path to get to a better truth. So, my view is whether it's diversity, the reality, the truth of the matter is, and somewhere I read, ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. It feels like we want to divert from what is true. This is not to bastardize or to beat up anyone over the head to say this is what happened. It's just to talk about the true history of this country. And it had its aches and its pains, and it has grown to be a great nation, but can become a greater nation. But you cannot diminish and dismiss the history of the people.
Arndrea, very quickly, the president, that is to say President Trump, recently told the New York Times that he believed enforcement of civil rights laws has discriminated against white Americans, and that reverse discrimination is something that Martin Luther King Jr. would have never stood for, and is trying to align himself, therefore, with the spirit of Dr. King's movement. I'd like your evaluation of that.
Well, I think that those words were very unfortunate, and I think that they were harmful, and I think that they were untrue. Dr. King's message was not about lifting up one particular group of people. What his message was about lifting us all up and creating truly a symphony of brotherhood and sisterhood in this country. Whenever you're using words or division, you're actually doing the exact opposite of what Martin Luther King Jr. Worked, fought, and eventually died for, which is the best of who we all are as Americans.
Martin Luther King III and Arndrea Waters King on this Martin Luther King Day. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.